long-term care. Rural doctors generally serve older, poorer patients. Going into a specialty in a big city can mean better working hours and more money to pay off student loans. The Salina program will pay tuition for each year that students practice in a rural area in Kansas. Dr. Cathcart Rake hopes 4 years of medical school and 2 years of residency will be enough time to put down roots. In his words, it's going to be, hopefully, harder for them to break away from those roots and go to bigger cities. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. This is the VOA Special English Education Report. More than half of young black men in the United States do not finish high school. Many grow up without fathers and in neighborhoods with gangs, drugs, and violence. 60% of those who drop out of school have spent time in jail by the age of 35. Joe Marshall co-founded the Omega Boys Club in San Francisco, California, 23 years ago. Mr. Marshall tries to give boys and girls a safe refuge and a chance at a better future. Every week, he has 2 basic messages for his young students: stop the violence and don't do drugs. Mr. Marshall spent 25 years as a teacher and administrator in San Francisco. He taught math in middle school and expected to see his best students go to college. But he said a lot of his former students ended up dead or in prison for selling drugs or being involved in gangs, and many girls ended up getting pregnant. The Omega Boys Club serves more than 400 young people every year. 2 times a week, it offers after-school classes in math, reading, family and life skills, and college preparation. In many ways, it serves as a kind of family. It provides teenagers with structure and support. Joe Marshall has a doctorate in psychology. He sees gangs and violence as a disease that needs to be dealt with as a public health problem. He tells young people to follow some new rules for living. These rules will decrease their chances of ending up dead or in prison and increase their chances of staying alive and free. The club represents the headquarters of what he calls the Alive and Free movement. But his most effective way to spread his anti-violence message is through radio. In 1991, Joe Marshall started Street Soldiers, a weekly call-in show. It airs on popular hip-hop station KMEL in San Francisco. Marlena was one of the graduates of the Omega Boys Club. She is at Southern University right now, going into her 3rd year. She talked about what she had learned by coming to Omega. The club provides guidance and financial assistance to help students stay in school. Over 90% of members who were accepted into college have graduated. 12 other American cities have copied the program. Joe Marshall has been invited to speak in Canada, Nigeria, South Africa, and Thailand. He turned 63 this year. He says he has no thoughts of retiring anytime soon. And that's the VOA Special English Education Report. From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report.
Parents in South Australia's Aboriginal areas may lose some of their financial aid if they do not send their children to school. New rules link school attendance with government assistance to people living in poverty. Warren Mundine is Prime Minister Tony Abbott's top advisor on issues concerning Aboriginal Australians or Aborigines. He disagrees with linking the aid to school attendance. Instead, he urges the government to find ways to improve attendance without punishing parents. He says he thinks strong punitive measures should be the last plan of action. Mr. Mundine says the situation can change if tribal leaders support education. He says the government needs to work with parents and communities to make what he calls a massive cultural change. Other officials argue that the threat of stopping aid will force families to take education more seriously. In South Australia State, only 50% of children stay in school after the age of 15. In some areas, as many as 90% of Aboriginal children struggle to read and write. The state government says it has special programs for Aboriginal students. It says students work with their parents and teachers to develop a personal learning plan and re-examine it every year. Public schools also have people available who can work individually with Aboriginal students who need extra help. And there is a program that helps Aboriginal students deal with the change from middle school to high school. About 670,000 Aborigines live in Australia. The state of Western Australia also has special programs for these native peoples and other groups. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. The Kibera School for Girls in the Kibera slum in Nairobi, Kenya, is the first school in the area to offer girls free education. It provides free tuition, uniforms, books, and meals to girls who qualify. The students are from pre-kindergarten through the 4th grade. The school gets its support from the surrounding community by providing people with much-needed services. The people of Kibera struggle to provide themselves with food, shelter, clean water, and good schools. Girls face the additional problems of discrimination and violence. Parents and guardians usually withdraw their daughters from school rather than their sons when money is lacking. So, the Kibera School for Girls works to help the community understand the value of education. Parents do not have to pay, but a family member must work at the school 5 weeks a year as a way to support a child's education. Girls are chosen based on the potential for their success as students and on financial need. Helping women make better futures is why Kennedy O'Dede established the school almost 4 years ago. He says that growing up in Kibera, he hated seeing that more boys than girls went to school. In 2004, Mr. Odede started a community movement that later became the organization called Shining Hope for Communities. He wanted to make life better for girls as well as